You may think of urban mobility as a somewhat recent concept, with places like New York City charging new congestion tolls in some of its most densely populated areas. E-bikes and scooters are more popular in the urban sprawl than ever before. But what if I told you Honda was nearly 70 years ahead of the curve? This is the 1965 Honda CT90. It was and still is the #1 selling vehicle in the world of all time. More than any Ford F-150 and more than any Toyota Corolla ever sold combined. This is Out Motorsports. My name is Tyler. Let's go for a little ride through history, shall we? So before we go for a ride, I just want to go over a little bit more of exactly what this Honda CT90 is. You may have heard the term, you meet the nicest people on a Honda, or maybe you've even seen Santa Claus riding around on a little Honda scooter. And that was really the beginning of its cultural relevance in America. Like I said, this is the #1 selling vehicle in the world. It has over 110 million units sold worldwide. That's more than any F-150, more than any Toyota Corolla, more than any Tesla Model Y. And they've been in production since the mid-1950s all the way up to now. There is a more modern version with a 125cc engine that Honda still makes, and there was a couple different cc variations in between. There was a 70cc, a 110cc, and it's really what put Honda on the map. This particular one, like I said, is a Honda CT90. It is the predecessor to the Honda Trail 90 and the Honda Trail 125. If you have seen those ad campaigns that I mentioned earlier, you've probably seen the Honda Super Cub or the Honda Cub, and that one has a bigger fairing in the front and is made for a little bit more of the urban sprawl. This one, as its name implies, is made for the trail. And there's a lot of different things that make this unique. As you can see, two different sprockets here in the rear. The smaller sprocket is made for if you do more city or road commuting, and the bigger sprocket is if you need to go up a hill, off-road, on the trails. This right here actually pops out, and from the factory, Honda supplied you the additional chain links that you needed to fit the chain around that larger sprocket, and also provided you with the tool that you needed to break the chain and do so. Back in the mid-50s to early 60s, most motorcycle manufacturers were still making two-stroke motorcycles. They were loud, they're noisy, they're smoky, you needed to mix a certain type of fuel mixture to get them to even run properly, and Honda was busy creating this, a very small displacement 89cc four-stroke engine with tiny little parts but very minimal maintenance that made these bikes essentially indestructible and dead reliable. The engine makes 7 horsepower at 8,500 RPM, which is honestly pretty high revving for something that is so old and so simple when you think about it, but honestly I'd be afraid to rev it that high today. Not that it has a usable tach anyway, you kind of just shift when you feel like it. And speaking of shifting, it might look like it has a clutch, but it actually doesn't. This is a centrifugal clutchless transmission, so it has 4 forward gears and a neutral, obviously, but you don't have to pull in a clutch to shift it. The 2 levers that you see here are actually redundant brakes. So left brake is actually the rear, and the right brake is the front brake, and there's also a foot pedal brake down there, and you just smack this shifter up and down to downshift and upshift. So it made this incredibly usable for anybody that wanted to ride it. Basically, you just had to learn which way was shifting up, which way was shifting down. Don't have to learn how to use a clutch, and you're off. So it made motorcycling accessible to the masses. It made urban transport accessible to the masses. And with that being said, I think it's time to go for a ride. Okay, so without further ado, let's set off on the Honda CT90, shall we? Safety first, so putting gloves on just in case. If I fall over, I'd like to be able to stop myself with my hands without getting hurt. Simple ignition system here. First click turns on the electronics. Second click makes it run. I don't know how else to explain it. But you have your Kickstarter over here with the Honda logo still on it. That's how you know it's original. This only has 2,000 miles on it. I don't know if this is going to need a choke or not because I wrote it here. So let's try to do the first kick without the choke. Starts right up. 1965, fully original engine as far as I know, and it starts right up. And this morning, like I said, I hadn't ridden it in over 3 months, just sat in my carport all summer and started second kick. So a testament to if you maintain these things, how simple and how well engineered they actually are. Okay, so like I said, pushing back on the gear shift is all the way down into neutral. No clutch here, so I'm just gonna kick up into first, and we're off. So the first thing you notice when you take off on this Honda is, oh, some people practicing their dance. The first thing you notice when you take off on this Honda, considering how old it is, so this is the oldest vehicle that I've ever driven or ridden. And if you drive old cars from the 1960s, there's a lot of things about them that just don't feel modern at all. However, when you get on this and you ride it, it really doesn't ride any different than a modern motorcycle. There's so many things about it that give you the confidence to just come out on a regular public street like this and putz around under 40 miles an hour. I say under 40 miles an hour because these old tires, this old suspension, and more importantly, these brakes don't really seem up for the task of anything more than 40 miles an hour. The rear brake on this is one that I've recently replaced, but the front on this, as far as I can see, is completely original. There's an original front brake line from the 1960s, and it's a little bit tough to use. Downshifting, off to the left I go. But when you go down the road, there's no wobble, there's nothing that makes you think that this motorcycle or scooter is as old as it is. Another thing that's really intuitive is the shifting. So it's interesting because it's not dead simple and user-proof. You still need to kind of know how to ride this motorcycle or how to ride a motorcycle. You'll notice I'm letting off the gas every time I upshift or downshift, and that's because it feels easier to shift, and it almost doesn't shift when you're on the gas. It just, no matter how hard you push, it won't shift up. So it requires a quick blip of the throttle to get a proper upshift. All right, so here we go uphill in what I believe is top gear. I haven't been counting, and you'll see it bogs down a little bit. But back to riding it and its accessibility and its ease. The lack of a clutch makes it so anybody gets on it, but the fact that there's a little bit of a learning curve kind of pulls you in, and it's endearing. It makes it so that this thing isn't just so easy and so simple and so mainstream that it doesn't have some personality to it still. In fact, it makes it more endearing. As you let off the throttle, you can shift quick. And the downshifts match perfectly every time. The adjustment on this gearbox is actually incredibly simple to do. It's just a 10mm bolt, and you adjust it left or right, and that adjusts the stiffness of the clutches. I will say this airbox is a little bit louder than stock because it's an open element airbox. So even though the exhaust is pretty quiet, the airbox itself kind of makes a little noise as you go throughout the neighborhood. But yeah, at a stop now, downshifted through the gears, no clutch, just rolls on, upshift and accelerate. Oh no, is this a scooter friend? What should I do? Oh, it's a little racing Honda. That's so good. But anyway, what I was saying was, one of Honda's reasons for not putting a clutch on this was so people could, back in the day when nobody cared about safety,
is use this for like deliveries. If you live in a city today, chances are you see a lot of like Chinese made scooters doing like Uber Eats and DoorDash throughout the city. And Honda was also ahead of that curve. 70 years ago, they're like, you know what, we don't need a clutch, it just needs to shift so you can hold somebody's drink in your left hand and just be more of a usable vehicle without putting like a basket or something on the back. So if I wanted to, I could ride around here one-handed and have the front brake and the rear brake and the throttle all controlled by my right hand. You technically don't ever need your left hand to ride this motorcycle. I'll just keep it up here so y'all can see. And I'll come to a stop. Well, you kind of need the front hand to hold onto the seat because you slide off the seat, but you get the point. This has a 2-gallon tank, I believe. It might even be like slightly above a 1-gallon tank, and you might think that's small until I tell you that this thing essentially gets over 100 miles to the gallon. So I have filled this up, I've taken it back and forth to the store a few times, I've ridden it around the neighborhood, and it still looks like I just put fuel in it yesterday, when in reality I've had it for over a year. We're going to come up to this stop sign, and we're going to really give it the beans. Full throttle. Sometimes it doesn't like to shift. Oh, it's too good. But honestly, being 60 years later, riding this around in 2025, and this is a 1965, makes me realize why 110 million of these have been sold. I have a 1000cc BMW as my personal bike. I also have a Moto Guzzi V85 TT as my personal bike, and there are parts of this that I don't get from either of those motorcycles. There's a simplicity in engineering, there's a quirkiness. Despite them being so popular, you just don't see them in America because a lot of people who did have them back in the day have sold them since then, or have kind of forgotten about them and left them in their barn or their garage, which is where I found this one. And there's just an aspect to it that is so endearing, but it's still modern enough and usable enough for me to run to the store just outside of my neighborhood and have a good time. It's quirky, it's simple, it's endearing, it's still good 60 years later, and there's a reason that Honda is still making them. So if you liked this quick and quirky little review of the Honda CT90, the most popular vehicle in the world of all time, please check out our website, outmotorsports.com, where we have a bunch of in-person motorsports events at the track or on the street all around the country. Like I said, my name is Tyler. This is Out Motorsports. We'll see you next time.